Donald Trump woke up furious this morning because his little peace plan was actually exposed as being a Russian wish list. Take a look at what he had to say. He says the war between Russia and Ukraine is a terrible one that, with strong and proper U.S. and Ukrainian leadership, would have never happened. It began long before I took office for a second term during the sleepy Joe Biden administration and has only gotten worse under Donald Trump's leadership, by the way. If the 2020 presidential election was not rigged and stolen, the only thing that radical left Democrats are good at doing, there would be no Russia-Ukraine war. As there wasn't not even a mention during my first term in office, Putin would have never attacked. It was only when he saw Sleepy Joe in action that he said, now is my chance, the rest is history, and so it continues. It really says a lot about Donald Trump when he's blaming former US presidents for a war that Putin started. And it's no coincidence he's ranting and upset about all of this when he got exposed for pushing a 28-point Russian wish list on Zelensky. He's now desperately trying to shift the blame for something he can't control and promised us all he would end on day one. He's now retreating into his comfort zone. Blame Democrats, blame Biden, blame anyone else except for the person who actually started the war.
But would we actually come together as a country and arrest the president after all of this is over and he's lost the next election? Yes, we would, and let me show you why. You see, this guy is Jair Bolsonaro, and that might not mean anything to you, but that's the Brazilian flag in the background because he was the president of Brazil recently. From January 1st, 2019 to January 1st, 2023. After his last election in 2022, he was arrested for attempting a coup, but it gets better. Charges also came for participation in armed criminal organization, January 6th. And then also they charged him with damage to protected property and heritage, which I'll be honest with you, we should charge Donald Trump with the same thing because the Capitol building is part of our heritage. It's part of the American heritage, and there was damage done, and he should pay for it. But so just yesterday, Jair Bolsonaro was arrested. He was on house arrest with an ankle monitor, which he did tamper with and try to disable, but wasn't successful in that, and he was just arrested yesterday as being deemed a flight risk, and he's going to jail for 27 years. 27 years, and he's older. So likely the rest of his life. So to answer your question, oh, and then Donald Trump was asked about this yesterday. He was asked about this, and he goes, well, that's just too bad. Because he likes the guy. All this to say is, yes, we will arrest Donald Trump. Not only that, when I get into Congress, we will open an investigation on every single person who was a conspirator and a co-conspirator in all of this. No one will be, if you are an ICE agent, you will be looked at and scrutinized with a fine-tooth comb, and you better hope you did nothing illegal, because you know the difference between right and wrong, and you know the difference between human rights. So you will be looked at with a fine-tooth comb just like everybody else will. And I look forward to the day. My name is Kyle Gauck, and I'm running for Congress in the 2nd District of Connecticut so we can hold accountability to these people. Please go to my website, kylegauck.com. You can sign up to vote. You can sign up to vote. You can't sign up to vote. You can sign up to, we need to add that. You can sign up to volunteer. You can sign up to donate. You can sign up for our free weekly newsletter. It comes out every Thursday, or you can just reach out. As always, if you made it this far, thank you. I love you, and we'll definitely talk soon. Now I'm going to go get a coffee before my wife kills me.
Last night on Truth Social, President Trump posted that he wanted those that were telling military individuals to, quote-unquote, disobey orders to be jailed. It's a bit of a rollback because just a couple of days ago, he was saying that he wanted the death penalty for the folks that were doing this. And as many know, these are Democratic lawmakers that are not telling folks to disobey orders from President Trump, but rather reminding folks that they can disobey unconstitutional orders. Democratic lawmakers that actually put forward a video were individuals that have also served. They were just reminding people that they took an oath to protect the Constitution of the United States, not someone.
Oh, what a Sunday. Trump's claiming again that the war in Ukraine never would have happened if he were in office. But here's the part he conveniently leaves out, or maybe he just doesn't understand it. Russia invaded Ukraine in 2014 when it annexed Crimea, launched the war in Donbass, killed thousands. That happened under Obama, granted, long before Biden, and before Trump's first or obviously second terms. So when exactly was he supposed to be in office to prevent that? The full-scale invasion in 2022 happened after Trump spent 4 years signaling to Putin that NATO was optional. He repeatedly threatened to pull the US out, openly mocked our allies, and told Putin he admired him for 4 long years. Trump froze military aid to Ukraine in 2019 to extort Zelensky into announcing an investigation into Biden. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's literally why he was impeached the first time. Putin didn't attack during Trump's first term, not because Trump was strong, but because Trump was useful. Putin was gaining influence, weakening NATO from within, and watching the West divide itself. Now, Trump wants to pretend the war came out of nowhere during Biden's term, so he can claim he inherited it in his current term. But you cannot inherit something that started 8 years before you took office, okay? This is what Trump does. He rewrites the timeline and hopes people are too tired or too uninformed to catch it. The war didn't start because Biden was weak. It escalated because Putin was emboldened by years of signals from Trump that America would look the other way. Trump isn't cleaning up a mess. He's pretending he didn't help create the conditions for it. But he did.
Is anyone surprised by this? Like anyone? We now know for a fact that a lot of these online, these big MAGA accounts constantly pushing pro-Trump propaganda and other kind of right-wing fascist propaganda, we now have learned that a lot of them are foreign accounts. We already knew that a lot of accounts on social media, especially in places like Twitter, are bot accounts. They're fictitious. They're not real people. Now we know because Twitter rolled out a new function where you can click on a profile of an account and get more information about that account, when they joined, what country they're from, how many times they changed their account name. And so as soon as this was rolled out, people started looking, where's this account based? Where's this account based? And a lot of these huge MAGA accounts are foreign accounts, like big accounts with millions of followers. Why would anyone be surprised by this? I mean, we had huge MAGA accounts. These are real people who literally were being paid by Russia. And what kind of content do they push? Pure Trump propaganda. Because Trump is Putin's puppet. They put him there for obvious reasons. By the way, I will talk about this later, but do you see that this latest peace plan, in quotes, peace plan, offered by Trump to bring an end to the war in Ukraine, literally written by Russia. Russia wrote it, handed it to Trump, he passed it off as his own peace proposal. You can't make this shit up.
So Donald Trump is having an absolute meltdown today. Why? Well, the rest of the world is moving on without him. And effectively, the USA is falling further and further behind. I want to show you guys what's going on. Let's jump right in. So first, this is Carney in Canada. Carney says the world can move on without the US. Stresses new ties. And basically what's going on is the G20 is happening right now, right? Canada's taking the lead. Korea's taking the lead. Many of our NATO allies are taking the lead. And essentially you got these new alliances forming. And then what is the USA doing? We're hanging out with Russia. This is coming out today. Trump officials meeting with Russian in Miami spurs questions about the latest Ukraine proposal. And I'll just be frank with you guys. Trump and his people look like Russian assets. There's just no other way to put it. They're meeting right now in Miami. They're trying to work out some sort of thing. And basically it's, hey, Russia's riding the negotiations with Ukraine, right? Trump says Zelensky can agree to the peace plan or, quote, fight his little heart out. It's coming from Trump. And when you read this stuff, I don't blame our allies for pulling away from Trump and the USA. I don't blame them, because look at this. The plan forces, and this is the plan that Trump and his people are working out with the Russians, the plan forces Ukraine to make concessions long seen as unacceptable to the country, including ceding territory to Russia, right? So basically Trump's plan is, hey, Ukraine, just give over land to Russia, okay? And significantly reducing the size of the Ukrainian army. It would also bar the presence of any NATO troops on Ukrainian soil. So basically Russia gets all the terms that they want. And they're right now writing it up with the Trump people. The plan was drafted by Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, and Russian envoy, Kirill Dmitriev, right? It was presented to Zelensky on Thursday. Since then, the White House has been pressuring Ukraine to agree to the terms of the deal by Thanksgiving or lose U.S. support. So basically, Trump and his people are like, hey, Ukraine, you better take the deal that Russia wrote because it's so awesome for Russia. And it's sick. I don't know what to say. It's sick. And then on top of that, Trump is freaking out, and he's like basically calling for the arrest of Democrats. All right, this is from Trump. He tweets out, the traitors that told the military to disobey my orders should be in jail right now, not roaming the fake news networks, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So first Trump was talking about death, and he was retweeting stuff about hanging, and now he's talking about jail. This is what Trump's up to. And it's no wonder then, if you're saying Canada or other place in the world, they're just like, whoa, you know, I'm just going to pull away from Trump. Why would I want to hang out with the USA right now? It's sick. I mean, I'm embarrassed. I'm shamed as an American that this is even happening. Could you just play this out? Could you imagine Ronald Reagan like sending his people like, hey guys, we're gonna work with the Russians, and we're gonna ignore the allies, we're gonna ignore NATO, and in fact, even better, like we're gonna invite them to Miami and we're gonna go golfing with the Russians. I mean, could you imagine Reagan doing that? And I mentioned Reagan because you know that used to be the Republicans' hero, but I guess now it's Trumpers. Listen to what Carney has to say. Carney, the summit, quote, brought together nations representing 3/4 of the world's population, 2/3 of global GDP, and 3/4 of the world's trade, and that's without the United States formally attending. Right? So basically we're just saying, hey, look at this. I mean, USA, you're not the only game in town. Carney, right? He's in South Africa. This is at G20. A lot of countries are there. The USA could have went, but I guess we're too busy, and we always have time for Russia for whatever reason. Quote, it's a reminder that the center of gravity in the global economy is shifting. And that's coming from Carney. And Carney's trying to make deals. Evidently, they're saying that they did something with the UAE. They're claiming $70 billion, and I always say claim with this stuff because you never know. But I'll just say this: it is more believable than what Trump's saying. So Canada's saying, "Hey, we got some sort of $70 billion deal," and then Trump bragging about $1 trillion, as if those numbers are believable. But I'm showing you both numbers at the same time because I want you to say, like, okay, if you are going to do a deal with another country, what would sound like at least a believable number? So, you know, with Canada and UAE, you're at least in the believable realm, right? $70 billion, but 100 trillion, no. And then you got Trumpers. He's claiming, literally, we are taking in trillions of dollars and tariffs and investment dollars from foreign lands because of tariffs, right? I have stopped 5 of the 8 wars directly because of the threat of the tariffs, blah, 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 right? So according to Trump, we're so rich with trillions of dollars. If that were the case, we wouldn't be worrying about whether or not we could pay for health care or whether or not we can have food for people, right? If we were so rich, where's the money? Show me the money. And from my point of view, when I see these kind of stuff where, you know, Trump's people are meeting with the Russians in Miami, I'm just thinking, okay, are we now are we planning retirement in Russia and Argentina? Is that the plan? It's sick and embarrassing, and I just don't also say it other than just tell you what's happening. You guys can see it for yourself. If you're curious, Ukraine has actually pushed back against the essentially Russia-written deal. And this is what they say. I'll read through it because it's important to go through this stuff. Ukraine seeks NATO-like shield from U.S. Counterproposal says. It just came out a few minutes ago. I don't know, read it. Their response, and again, this is against the Russia-U.S. plan. Their response from Ukraine. Their response to the U.S. 28-point plan asks for security guarantee for the Americans that mirrors NATO's Article 5. Okay. Mutual defense clause and demands that frozen Russian assets be used to reconstruct and compensate Kyiv, according to the people who spoke in condition of anonymity, which basically they're trying to say, hey, Russia, you got to pay for the war, I think is what it sounds like. They reject Moscow's demands that Kyiv cede unoccupied territory in the east, so they don't want to give up their land. And when you look at sort of which countries involved, you see what I'm saying to where the world is moving on without U.S. So first, the U.S. proposal, which was drafted with Russian input, so right, basically were Russian assets. You can see right there, the U.S. proposal, which was drafted with Russian input, would limit the size of Ukraine's armed forces to 600,000 personnel. But then you have the other plan, which is the rest of the world. European leaders, joined by a group of 7 members, Canada and Japan, pushed back against the notion that Ukraine's borders could be shrunk, or that the armed forces could be capped in a statement issued on the sidelines of the G20 summit in South Africa on Saturday. So that's what's happening now. So you have Trump and his people and the Russians doing one plan, and you have the rest of the world doing another. Right? It's happening, and I'm just so shamed by Trump. I just don't know what to say to him. I just don't know what to say, because if you're MAGA people, right? Like how do you take this? So I mentioned the Reagan thing. Could you imagine Reagan doing something like this, guys? It would be insane if like NATO and you know Canada and Japan and like other allies were all meeting, right, trying to figure out what to do, and then like could you imagine Reagan running off with his people to meet with, you know, the Russia? No, of course not. It's like, it's ludicrous. And you know, this is on a weekend that they're pulling this crap, and they're trying to get Russia before Thanksgiving. So they're trying to, you know, do something when no one's paying attention. That's why I'm showing it to you, because I'm paying attention, and I think everyone should be paying attention. So then the counter proposal says, the people said a higher cap could be negotiated. Ukraine has previously said it needs an army of at least 800,000 troops during peacetime. While all this is going on, and I just want to point other things out to you as well, Korea is also at the G20. They're looking to build partnerships the same way Canada is. And essentially the rest of the world is like, you know what, we don't need the USA. And if you were the USA, like what Trump always does all the time is basically try to threaten people and try to do the mafia tactics. And I just want to give you a different point of view of how things can be done, because sometimes people ask, what's going on in Korea. So Korea is like really pushing culture, because that's part of business, right? So for example, they have the first lady out, and she's like, hey, in South Africa, we're going to teach Korean traditional food. So why would you do that? I'm telling you guys, food sales are actually through the roof here in Korea, because something like K-pop Demon Hunters on Netflix, or all the Korean TV shows and movies, people watch that stuff and they're like, hey, I kind of want to try that. And they run down to the store and they start buying up Korean food. And actually, you'll see it all over the news, or like Korean food is selling really well abroad. That's just one example, right? And so from the American perspective, if we had a better leader in place, you would go around the world and you start promoting, hey, you want to do business with us because we're reliable partners, we're good partners, we put out good products, right? The same way that many of you may have, and I'm just talking about Korea because I live here and I see it for myself and firsthand. But I'm sure many of you at home have like an LG or a Samsung TV. You may drive a Korean car. You may have a Samsung phone, right? You may have a lot of Korean products in your house. You may be interested in trying Korean food, right? Or let's watch Korean movies. But this is the kind of stuff that Americans should, be trying to do in a positive way, not threatening people. If you don't buy our products, we're not going to, we're going to put tariffs on all your stuff. No, what you want to do is like put out really good stuff that people want, and they'll buy it. And then, from Trump's point of view, it's just lie. It's essentially what it is. Like today was pretty bad. He was lying about that his poll numbers are like the best he's ever gotten. His quote was, I have just gotten the highest poll numbers in my political career. He actually gets fact checked, which is not hard to do. You just show him all the recent poll numbers. So that's what all these people are doing today. And if you look at the USA, what's going on, consumer sentiment is, see right here, U.S. consumer sentiment falls to a near lowest on record. The argument that the Trump people are trying to make lately is that you just got to wait, guys. You just got to wait. The amazing Trump economic plan is going to take time, so just wait. and I don't know how long people are going to be like, okay, I'm totally waiting. I don't think they're going to wait that long. I mean, you already see it in the polling numbers. It effectively make it the most simple way to understand. 2/3 of the USA see Trump's a train wreck, and 1/3 is like, I guess, in fantasy land. But you can see consumer sentiment is down. I'll read some of this stuff so you guys get more details on this. So one, U.S. consumer sentiment fell in November to one of the lowest levels on record as American views of their personal finances soured. We've kind of known this already. The current conditions gauge slid to a record low, with views of personal finances being the dimmest since 2009. So we're actually in pretty bad territory here. Consumers remain frustrated about high prices and weakening incomes. Here's more. Consumers are anxious about high cost of living and job security, with the probability of personal job loss climbing to the highest since July 2020. So basically, people are worried about losing their jobs in the USA. They're worried that things cost too much, and you're at levels that we haven't seen in quite a while. And this is all over in Trump, and then Trump just tells you that everything's awesome and going off and making deals with the Russians to put money in his pocket. That's basically what it boils down to. And then when you check in, like what Duffy is saying, and this is the transportation secretary, he has to tell Americans how to behave because people are getting too many fights on planes, basically what it boils down to. But this is like due to multiple factors. I would argue if people are feeling under stress all the time, be it just for example, just take a regular person's life. Let's say you're worried about all the time that you're going to get fired at your job, and you're stressing out because health insurance costs too much, and you go to the store and everything is really expensive. Like it builds up. And if you surround everyone with that same kind of culture, and then you got President Trump is like completely out of touch, this is what you get. It's like it's just everything's a stress and a hassle every day, right? So it's crazy that we even have to talk about this stuff in 2025, but this is what it is. So this is from Duffy, the transportation secretary in the USA. Duffy says, "It's not your imagination. Traveling has become more uncivilized." This is from the U.S. government basically saying traveling in the USA is uncivilized. I know this already as it being true, but it's crazy that we even are having to talk about this in the USA. From Duffy, 400% increase in outbursts on planes since 2019. Basically, people fight on planes. People do pull all kinds of crap, and just it's the USA. I just put it that way. 1 in 5 flight attendants report experiencing physical incidents, which is really, really awful. I can't stress this enough. If you go on a plane and do any sort of travel or anything like that, be kind to people, say please, say thank you, just respect other people. And you'll find that like people who say flight attendants or people who work hotel or whatever will be nicer to you. You be nice to them, they'll be nice to you. But, for some people in the USA, they think they have to yell and scream and, oh, don't you know, I'm American. You have to treat me great. And, yelling and screaming and stuff like that tends not to have a good experience for you. And then this also says unruly passengers events doubled since 2019. But it doesn't have to be that way. The golden age of travel starts with all of us. It's time to bring back civility and manners when we travel. That's official, communication from our government, and I guess they're putting a minute and 31-second video about how Americans should behave better. It's laughably sad. It's all this stuff is like laughably sad. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I can cry, I can kick, and I can scream about the stuff that Trump's doing, but sometimes you got to pull back, and it's just like this is honestly our South Park timeline. I do want to say this though. My wife and I. You can find this on our vlog channel. We went to a tea and food festival here in Korea today. And I met a guy from Canada. It's pretty cool. He was from Toronto, and I think he moved here to Busan, and actually he's got a chocolate business of all things. And he said he brought the brand over from Canada to here in Korea, and then he does a fusion of Canada, or we could say, well, just he uses local sourcing here, and then also mixes it probably with sources from other places, and just invented essentially a new product. Like, hey, we use a little bit of Korea, a little bit of Canada, and a little bit of other countries and stuff like that. And he was talking about working with local farmers, and it's just I mentioned this experience because whenever, and I cry because I just think it's important. Whenever you meet someone from another country and you just like, wow, they're not so different from you. and it's like he had even been to my hometown. He's like, yeah, I've been to Portland many times, right? And you realize like not everyone out there is bat crap crazy like Trump. I just want to make that clear. And, you know, we get down on what's going on in America and you get down on Trump, but not everyone out there is a Trumper or a MAGA. And I know some of you guys get frustrated as well because, like, you want to, you know, people write, oh, Chris, you know, we're all not like Trump. I know that. But I get frustrated. I'm human the same way that you are. And you know, what I try to talk about every day is this, like, you know, talking in an actual, you know, human way and get, you know, try to communicate to MAGA people about this stuff. That's why I mentioned the Reagan thing like that. And, you know, it just should be obvious to anyone, like, that we're in a horrible direction. And, you know, this stuff right here, it should be obvious to anyone that, I mean, Trump should be removed from office immediately. It's absolutely insane. You know, when I look at, say, our NATO allies, I don't look to, like, you know, France or Germany or UK or whatever, and I don't think, oh my God, they're so terrible, I want to go with Russia. I don't think that. I think the opposite, actually. I mean, whenever I talk with friends from, you know, Europe, the Russian influence and the Russian threat is you know, really awful. It's scary crap, the stuff that Putin pulls. I'll take France, you know, UK, Germany over Russia any day. I don't think I'm saying anything crazy. I'll take Japan or Canada over Russia. I mean, yeah, you know, you want reliable allies, and right now, just what Trump is up to is it's frankly awful. So, you know, it's no wonder that Carney's saying we can move on without the USA, and the damage that Trump is doing to the country right now is pretty terrible. My personal opinion, I just you know, got to make it to midterms, and then he'll be a lame duck for the next 2 years. So it may not necessarily be the, you know, some people are saying, oh, Chris is going to be awful for the next 3 years. May not necessarily be so. It may just be put up with it for just another year. You know, you start counting down days, you get, you know, less than a year really, and we'll get there, because I personally think that they're not going to tolerate it much longer. You look at consumer sentiment is down. I mean, that's big when I show you that stuff. Or we'll see how this holiday season ends up being. So I know it's hard to talk about the truth of what's going on, but I also try to stay positive because we're going to make it through. I'll just put it that way. There's too many good people out there that'll stand up. That's my hope. And that's what we need to keep always believing in. So I do appreciate your time, everyone. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.